I'll never forget the moment I collapsed at my son Daniel's rehearsal dinner. 1 second I was standing by the dessert table, trying to smile through another one of William's criticisms. The next, the room was spinning and the polished hardwood floor was rushing up to meet me. When I came to, I was in an ambulance, and my husband of 18 months was telling the paramedics I'd been having episodes for weeks. Episodes I never had. That's when I knew what he'd been doing to me all along wasn't just in my head, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I got there. 5 years after my husband James died, I finally felt ready to try living again. James and I had 42 good years together before cancer took him. Those first years without him were a fog. I went through the motions, showed up for my son and daughter-in-law and grandkids, but I wasn't really present. Then one Tuesday morning, my neighbor Carol dragged me to a watercolor painting class at the Riverside Community Center. I went just to make her stop asking. That's where I met William. He was set up at an easel by the window, painting a landscape of the river that ran behind the center. Silver-haired, with kind blue eyes and paint-stained fingers, he looked exactly like the kind of gentleman my mother would have called distinguished. During our break, he approached me with 2 cups of coffee. "You're new," he said, handing me a cup. "I'm William. Fair warning, my coffee procurement skills are better than my painting skills." I laughed for the first time in months. Margaret, and I'm pretty sure my painting skills are worse than both of us combined. We fell into an easy conversation. He was a retired accountant, 70 years old, been taking this class for 2 years. His wife Linda had died 3 years earlier. Heart attack, sudden, no warning. He understood loss in a way most people couldn't. We started having coffee after each class, then lunch, then dinner. William was everything James wasn't, and at first, I thought that was wonderful. James had been spontaneous, a bit scattered, full of big ideas and half-finished projects. William was meticulous, organized, thoughtful about every decision. He sent flowers every Friday. He planned dates weeks in advance. He listened when I talked about James, never seemed threatened or uncomfortable with my grief. "Linda would have loved this place," he'd say when we tried a new restaurant. "She was always the adventurous one when it came to food. I'm learning from you, Margaret." It felt respectful. It felt like we were 2 people who understood that you don't stop loving someone just because they're gone. You just make room for something new alongside that love. After a year, when William proposed in that same community center where we met, holding out a simple gold band, I said yes. My son Daniel had some reservations about the timeline, but he wanted me to be happy. My daughter-in-law Melissa was more encouraging. "Mom, you deserve this," she told me. "Dad would want you to be happy." We married in a small ceremony at the courthouse. I sold my house, the one James and I raised Daniel in, and moved into William's 2-story colonial on Maple Street. It was bigger than I needed, but William insisted. This way, when Daniel and Melissa visit with the grandkids, everyone has their own space. It seemed thoughtful. The first few months were an adjustment. Like any marriage, I learned William's routines. Coffee at exactly 6:30, breakfast at 7, dinner at 6 in the evening. He liked things neat, organized, systematic. The spontaneity from our courtship evaporated, but I told myself that was natural. Dating is different from daily life. The comments started small. "Linda would have known not to put that pan in the dishwasher," William said one evening, pulling out a cast-iron skillet I'd washed. "It ruins the seasoning." "Oh, I'm sorry," I said. I didn't know. Linda grew up cooking. She understood these things. I pushed down the small sting of the comparison and made a note about the skillet. Everyone has preferences about their kitchen, I told myself. The next week, I was getting ready for Carol's birthday dinner at a downtown restaurant. I'd bought a new dress, a deep burgundy that I thought looked nice. "Are you wearing that?" William asked from the bedroom doorway. "Yes. Why? Does it look okay?" "It's just, Linda would never have worn something so bold. She had a more subtle elegance, you know." I changed into a black dress instead. The burgundy one stayed in my closet, tags still on. When I mentioned going back to the watercolor class, William frowned. "Don't you think you should focus on making this house feel like yours first? Linda spent years getting everything just right. You've barely unpacked your things." I didn't go back to class. I told Carol I was too busy settling in. She looked disappointed but said she understood. The comparisons became a drumbeat in the background of my life. Linda made pot roast on Sundays. Linda kept the house spotless. Linda never interrupted when I was working. Always Linda. Always a reminder that I was falling short of a ghost. When Daniel called to invite us to Saturday brunch with him and Melissa and the kids, William checked his planner. "We have the Historical Society lecture that morning, Margaret. You committed to these things." Linda never double-booked us. "Can't we skip just this once? I haven't seen the grandkids in 3 weeks." "You're seeing them at Thanksgiving. That's next month." "You can't see them every week, Margaret." Linda understood that couples need their own time. I called Daniel and made an excuse. I could hear the confusion in his voice, but I didn't know how to explain that my new husband had a point. Wasn't it important to build our life together? Wasn't I being selfish, always wanting to run back to my old routines? Then William started managing our finances. "It just makes sense," he explained. "I was an accountant for 40 years. Linda never had to worry about a single bill. Let me take care of you." I added him to my accounts. James had handled most of our finances too. It seemed normal. Except William decided I didn't need my own credit card. "We'll use the joint account. That way I can track our spending, make sure we're staying on budget." Linda and I never had money problems because we were transparent about everything. When I wanted to buy new towels for the guest bathroom, ones that were a soft yellow instead of Linda's beige, William pulled up a spreadsheet. "We're over budget this month. Those towels can wait." Linda's towels are perfectly functional. Everything in that house was Linda's. Her furniture, her dishes, her paint colors on the walls. The few boxes I'd brought from my old house sat in the garage, unpacked. When I suggested we might mix some of my things in, William got that tight expression around his mouth. "This house is my life's work, Margaret. Linda and I built this together. I can't just erase her." I wasn't asking him to erase her. I just wanted one room, maybe the spare bedroom, where I could put my own bookshelf, my own chair, some photos of James and Daniel. But the conversation always ended with me feeling selfish for wanting to change anything. The isolation happened so gradually I didn't see it until it was complete. Carol stopped calling after I canceled on her 3 times in a row. William always had a reason why I couldn't go. "We have dinner with the Hendersons from my firm. I need you here. I'm not feeling well. Linda never went out without me. It's just respectful." When Daniel's birthday came around, I wanted to take him to lunch, just the 2 of us, like James and I used to do every year. William's face hardened. "That's a bit exclusionary, don't you think? I'm part of this family now. Linda would never have excluded me from family events." So William came to lunch. He dominated the conversation, and I could see Daniel trying to catch my eye across the table, looking concerned. Afterward, in the parking lot, Daniel pulled me aside while William went to get the car. "Mom, are you okay? You seem different." "I'm fine, honey, just adjusting to married life again. It's just, you never call anymore. And you didn't come to Aiden's soccer game last weekend. He asked about you." The guilt was crushing. "I'm sorry. William had plans, and William can't come to a kid's soccer game alone? Mom, you love those games." But William was pulling up, and I got in the car, and Daniel stood there looking worried, and I told myself he was overreacting. The medical gaslighting started after I mentioned feeling exhausted all the time. I'd been sleeping poorly, feeling dizzy, forgetting things. When I suggested seeing my doctor, William shook his head. "I think you're just stressed. Linda used to get like this when she was anxious. Are you taking your vitamins?" I wasn't taking vitamins. He started giving me some, the same ones Linda had taken. Fish oil, vitamin D, something else I couldn't pronounce. I took them because he was trying to help, and within a week, I felt worse. Brain fog, nausea, more dizziness. "Maybe I should see Dr. Patterson," I said one morning after nearly fainting in the kitchen. "You're being dramatic, Margaret. Linda never ran to the doctor for every little thing. These supplements just need time to work." So, I kept taking them, kept feeling worse, kept telling myself I was being dramatic, just like William said. I stopped calling Daniel as much. I didn't have the energy, and William was always hovering nearby when I did call, listening, making faces if I talked too long. Linda knew when to wrap up a conversation, he'd say after I hung up. By the time Daniel called to tell us about his engagement to Melissa's best friend Katie, I'd become a shadow in my own life. The rehearsal dinner was planned for a Friday night at Riverside Manor. I tried to feel excited, but I was so tired. The supplements weren't helping. Nothing was helping. "We need to get you a new dress for the dinner," William announced the week before. "Something appropriate." Linda always knew exactly what to wear to these events. We went shopping. Every dress I liked. William vetoed. Too bright, too young, too casual. We finally left with a navy dress that looked like something from Linda's closet would have looked like, I was sure. Dark, conservative, invisible. The night of the rehearsal dinner, I took my supplements and tried to put on makeup. My hands were shaking. In the mirror, I looked older than 67. I looked sick. "You look tired," William observed, coming into the bathroom. "Try to smile tonight, Margaret." Linda always made such a good impression at these things. The dinner was beautiful. Katie was radiant, Daniel was happy, and I should have been over the moon for them. Instead, I stood by the dessert table, trying to stay upright while the room tilted. William was across the venue, talking to Daniel's boss, gesturing animatedly, the life of the party, the man I'd married. Melissa appeared at my elbow. "Mom, are you all right? You look pale." "I'm fine, dear. Just a bit tired." "When's the last time you saw your doctor?" "You've lost weight." Had I? I wasn't sure anymore. Time had become fuzzy, days blending together in William's scheduled routine. "Margaret never needs doctors." William's voice came from behind me, making me jump. "She's just adjusting to all the excitement. Linda used to get overwhelmed at big events, too." Melissa's eyes narrowed. "With all due respect, William, I'm asking Margaret." That's when the dizziness got worse. The room spun violently, and I heard Melissa shout my name, felt hands grabbing me, and then nothing but darkness. I woke up in an ambulance, someone checking my pulse, voices talking quickly about blood pressure and oxygen levels. William was there, holding my hand, his face the picture of concern. "She's been having these episodes," he was telling the paramedic. "Getting confused, dizzy. I've been worried about early dementia, honestly. Her late husband's mother had Alzheimer's." That wasn't true. James's mother had died of a stroke at 92 with her mind sharp as ever. "No," I tried to say, but my voice came out weak. "That's not—" "It's okay, sweetheart," William soothed, squeezing my hand. "You're just confused." At the hospital, they ran tests. Blood work, CT scan, EKG. A young doctor with tired eyes came in after an hour, closing the curtain around my bed. William moved to stay, but the doctor held up a hand. "I need to speak with Mrs. Browning privately first. I'm her husband. It's hospital policy for certain conversations. You can come back in shortly." William left, but not before giving me a meaningful look. The doctor waited until his footsteps faded, then pulled up a chair. "Mrs. Browning, I'm Dr. Adeyemi. I need to ask you some questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Has anyone been preventing you from seeing your regular doctor?" The question hit me like cold water. William said I didn't need to. "Have you been taking any new medications or supplements recently?" "Vitamins. William gives them to me. The same ones his late wife took." "Do you have them with you?" "I did. They were in my purse, which Melissa had brought with her." Dr. Adeyemi took the bottles, examined the labels, and his jaw tightened. "Mrs. Browning, these aren't just vitamins. This one contains a sedative, a strong one, and this one has a medication that can cause dizziness and confusion if taken incorrectly. Who told you these were vitamins?" The room tilted again, but this time not from medication. "William," he said. "He said they'd help." Dr. Adeyemi was quiet for a moment. "Margaret, may I call you Margaret? I need to ask you something else. Do you feel safe at home?" I'd never had anyone ask me that, not since James died. And suddenly, sitting in that hospital room with fluorescent lights humming overhead and the smell of antiseptic in the air, I couldn't say yes. I couldn't say the automatic response I'd been trained to give over 18 months. "I don't know," I whispered. "I used to feel safe, but now I don't know anything anymore." "Does he isolate you from family and friends?" "Yes." "Does he compare you to his late wife?" "Every day." "Does he control your finances?" "All of them." "Has he been giving you medication without proper medical supervision, telling you it's something else?" The tears came then, hot and shameful and relieving all at once. Dr. Adeyemi handed me tissues and waited. "This is called coercive control," he said gently. "It's a form of domestic abuse. It's subtle, systematic, and often invisible to everyone outside the relationship, sometimes even to the person experiencing it." "But he never hit me," I said, confused. "He's never even raised his voice." "Abuse doesn't have to be physical to be real, and what you've described, combined with the improper medication I'm seeing here, is serious, very serious." He asked if I had someone who could come. I gave him Daniel's number. My son arrived 20 minutes later, Melissa right behind him, both still in their rehearsal dinner clothes. When Daniel saw me, his face crumpled. "Mom, what happened?" "Doctor," Adeyemi explained about the medications, the symptoms, the pattern he was seeing. With every word, I watched my son's face shift from confusion to horror to rage. That son of a Melissa put a hand on his arm, steadying him. "Where's William?" Daniel asked. "In the waiting room," Dr. Adeyemi said. "I need to be clear about something. Margaret is legally an adult and can make her own choices. But I'm documenting everything I've found, and I'm making a recommendation that she not return home with William tonight." "She's not," Daniel said immediately. "She's coming home with us." "I can't just leave," I said, but even as the words came out, I knew how hollow they sounded. "Mom." Daniel took my hand, the way I used to hold his when he was small and scared. You can leave right now. We'll figure everything else out later, but you're coming home with us." Melissa nodded. "The guest room is already set up. You'll stay as long as you need to. And tomorrow, we're calling a lawyer." When William came back, furious about being kept waiting, Daniel stood between us. "She's not going home with you," my son said, his voice steady and cold. "That's not your decision to make. She's my wife, and she's my mother, and from what the doctor just told us, you've been systematically poisoning and manipulating her for over a year. So no, William, she's not going anywhere with you." I expected William to fight, to argue, to turn on the charm that had won me over at that watercolor class. Instead, his face went blank, empty, like a mask had fallen off. "Fine," he said, "but everything in that house is mine. The money, the accounts, all of it. Linda and I built that life. You'll get nothing." And then he walked out. Just like that. No fight. Because I wasn't worth fighting for once he couldn't control me anymore. The lawyer Melissa found helped me understand what had happened. William had been gradually transferring money from our joint account to one in only his name. The house had never been added to my name despite his promises. Even my own savings, the money from selling my house with James, had been moved without proper documentation. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what we found out about Linda. She hadn't died of a heart attack. She'd left him 2 years before her actual death, taken out a restraining order. Died a year later in Arizona, where she'd moved to get away from him. The obituary he'd shown me was real. He just left out the part where they'd been divorced for a year before she died. A little more digging by, Daniel found 2 other women. Both widows. Both had been in relationships with William for less than 2 years before they left. One had a protection order. One just disappeared from his life and refused to talk about it. I'd been his 3rd attempt. Maybe his 4th or 5th, for all I knew. Recovery has been slow. Dr. Patterson, my real doctor, helped me detox from the medications William had been giving me. My mind cleared over weeks. The fog lifted. I started to recognize myself again. Daniel and Melissa kept me with them for 3 months. I played with my grandkids. I went to Aiden's soccer games. I had lunch with Carol and cried and apologized, and she held my hand and said, "You have nothing to apologize for." I went to a support group for people who'd experienced coercive control and emotional abuse. I learned that what happened to me wasn't rare. That shame and confusion and "but he never hit me" were things everyone in that circle had felt. That isolation and comparison and gradual erosion of self were tools in a well-worn playbook. The lawyer managed to recover some of my money. Not all of it, but enough. I found a small apartment near Daniel and Melissa, a 1-bedroom with a balcony where I could paint. I went back to the watercolor class at the community center. This time, when someone approached me with coffee, I politely declined. I'm learning to trust myself again. To trust my instincts. to know the difference between someone who respects my past and someone who weaponizes it. If you're reading this, if something in my story sounds familiar, please listen to me. It's not in your head. Abuse doesn't have to leave bruises to be real. If someone constantly compares you to an ex, living or dead, that's not love. If someone isolates you from your family and friends, that's not protection. If someone controls your money, your time, your decisions, that's not partnership. And if someone makes you take medication you don't need or understand, that's not care, that's harm. You deserve more. You deserve respect and autonomy and your own life. And you are not alone. There are people who will believe you, who will help you, who will stand beside you when you're ready to stand up for yourself. I was 67 years old when I finally left. It's never too late to choose yourself. You are stronger than you know, and you are not alone.